Hey, everybody, welcome to the show.
Oh, is there an earthquake in Florida?
What was that? Yeah, sorry. As I was like, I gotta get this up higher, and then that's what happened. Welcome, folks, far and wide to the Untitled Themed Entertainment Lockdown Design Show. We're live coast to coast across the globe. You got Patrick Kling here, one of your hosts. I mean, of course, you have Andy over there. Andy, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. It was a busy week last week, and it's a busy week this week in the world of themed entertainment.
Cool deal. So we got a lot of people watching us right now, which is exciting, folks. Go ahead and comment below. We look forward to chatting with you. Today, we're going to be talking about our international parks. And, you know, we have a super fan out there. No. Dave Edmonds is here. I'm going to bring him on right away. Hey, Dave, how you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
Is this thing on?
Thanks for having me on.
He's in 8-bit land.
Yeah. It's it looks like your service was a little issue there. So we're here to talk about international parks, but before we jump right into that, David, can you give us a little bit of a background on what your story, your love of theme parks, all that kind of good stuff? Because we're all friends here. This is all a fun show, and it's great for Andy to get to know you better. You know, I know you obviously. But would you be willing to share your story a little bit with us?
Yeah. So I was a creative director in the themed entertainment industry. I got my start because I don't want to say how many years ago. I went on vacation and rode Splash Mountain and Carousel of Progress and decided those were the greatest things I had ever been on, and I needed to get into that world. I came from frontline operations in the Magic Kingdom in Haunted Mansion, Jungle Cruise, the best rides. Went from there into internships and worked my way through the career up to doing some attractions and doing some lands and a couple parks. And it's a great time. So I'm lucky that I got to do something with my fandom and turn it into a professional career, take the passion and do something with it. So.
Patrick, you're muted.
Well, I don't want to speak for Andy, but I know I'm a super huge fan of theme parks, obviously, and I also like water parks. And I know Andy's a super fan too. So
Bye.
Oh, that's cool. Shirt.
Thought I'd wear that today.
That's a great shirt. So we're fans, and I know all the folks that are watching us. Okay, cool. So we got the started in Magic Kingdom 2. Nice. I'm not sure if you know this person or not, but they are a Narnia expert.
Clearly.
So honestly, I think it's just fun to just jump kind of into the news a little bit. So David, I know you're totally you're keeping track of it. We've kind of talked about on the show about keeping up to it. We dedicate the first little bit of the show to talk about it, and we have huge stories out there right now. Shanghai Disneyland's reopened with limited capacity, reservations, temperature checks, social distancing. Basically, all the things that we predicted was going to happened on our previous shows. What's your take on all this, guys? Andy, what do you think?
Well, I was, of course, happy to see a Disney park open again after more than 100 days. It was almost 120 days, was it?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's such a relief to see it actually happen and see it actually go so well. I was, like I said, not surprised to see any of the measures that were taken, and frankly, I was very surprised to see some cast members without masks in some of the videos that were surfacing and whatnot. But it looks like a slow day at the park. It looks like the Wednesday and Thursdays that I was there 2 years ago. Not Friday. Friday was terrible. I just left, went to the airport. I mean, I was a little surprised to see all the graphic stickers on the floor surfaces of the queues and the stand and watch shows, the little area development shows, the big yellow squares where you can stand and watch the shows. I don't think that would ever work in a U.S. park. People would just be like, screw you, my kid is more important than your yellow square. I mean, I thought it looked like it went really well. I mean, I guess it's sold out for a few days, and they're opening up more spots as they go, and to see how it works.
Yeah. Well, David, what do you think about the reopening? What's your take? Your hot take?
My hot take, I think it's good news. It's just it's a little bit reassuring to have a Disney park finally reopen. It's been a little too long without them, and it's kind of the beacon of hope. And I think the shot of people in front of a castle park with Disney is one of those, is that ultimate PR shot for our industry that it doesn't get better than that. Any other parks, no offense, that have opened, they don't have the impact as widely as the shot of people in front of a Disney castle open again after the virus.
That's a good point.
Yeah, sure. You know, I worked in guest control operations at Disneyland for many years during the 50th anniversary fireworks show. So I have a lot of hands-on experience. Sorry, I'm trying to find my camera. Okay. I have a lot of hands-on experience with guest control and getting people to do it. I think people are actually more trainable than we've given them credit for. So you put some blocks on the ground and you have people that are scolding them, and there's a lot of controversy out there about, will people wear the mask and will they not? And I think that if you say, hey, you need to wear it, there's going to be so much social pressure around you. And if they mandate that you have to and you walk in with it, I think people are very trainable, and it's going to be a self-selecting group of people that are willing to go to the park to do it. I'm also, other things that I've been seeing out there just to talk about capacity is that people are saying that the parks need to operate at 50% capacity to be profitable. And I've been in Disneyland and worked as a cast member when the park was 20% full. They can do it. They're not making billions of dollars every day, but there's an opportunity cost. This is the basic business principle, where if they're not operating, they're losing more money than they would if they were operating. So there's just a lot of weird, what's really difficult when you're an expert in something and then you see news articles out there that are just complete nonsense. And you're like, that's not true. But we obviously have to be careful because we know we have insider knowledge and trade secrets, and we know what a design day is and things like that you just can't get into publicly. But it's like, they're going to be fine. It's going to be weird, and they can slowly onboard, bring back people as they need to. It might be like, let's just say normally in Tomorrowland attractions, you would have 6 managers over a 12-hour shift. You might only need 4 because there's not a lot of people in the park. I think that the majority, people can't get to the parks right now because they're worried about traveling. So, for example, Walt Disney World, I think it's going to be self-selecting, and they're not going to be crowded just by the nature of people not being able to get to them or afford to or want to get to them, versus Disneyland, which is going to be a little bit different. You have all those locals that just drive on the 5 freeway, get down from LA or go across Orange County. That's going to be a little bit of an interesting thing. But they, of course, just kind of said that there might be a 3-month extension to the lockdown order in LA County. And we're 2 months in here in Orlando, and we're starting to reopen things, so it's interesting to see how that goes.
One of the interesting things is the Disneyland Resort is not in LA County. So we'll see what the state says and what Orange County decides. I think that the Disney company probably has some of the reins in the Orange County decision-making process. Yeah.
Well, and it all has to do with how many people are willing to go. So if half your audience in Orange County or LA is not there, that can be challenging too. So May 20th, Disney Springs in here in Orlando has announced that they're reopening. And then today, City Walk was announced that it was reopening.
On Thursday.
What's that?
Yeah. On Thursday, it's quick.
Yeah, will you go? Would you go?
No, I don't. I'm not clamoring to go. Now, I will say that, we went to the grocery store to get to pick up our food that was already sourced for us. And we saw that the restaurants, there were people on the patios, and it was people were eating on the patios of these restaurants at limited capacity. So there's people that are clamoring for it. I personally am fine. I'm fine being where I'm at. I'm not clamoring to go to Disney Springs or City Walk. I'm pretty content here. However, if people want to, that's their prerogative. But what's really interesting is that to see a company like Universal say, we're doing temperature checks to everybody walking in. I don't think I've really heard of that happening in the US on such a grand scale. So I'm personally excited about that. We've been talking about that for 6-7 weeks about how China was doing it from the very beginning, and they're doing contact tracing. So this can help. One thing I want to say to everybody watching is that, I'm not wanting the parks to reopen sooner than they should, but I also think we need to look at the data and see how that matches up. So right now in Orange County, we had 7 new cases yesterday. That's over, 1.2 million people, 7 new cases. So slowly reopening things when it makes sense in different parts of the country. I think that's fine, and I'm the kind of guy I'm going to wear a mask wherever I go. I want the parks and I want City Walk and Disney Springs to mandate that you have to have a mask on, and I want temperature checks. I will feel comfortable going to Disney if that's in place and we see that there's not a second wave. If this fizzles out, that would be great. But I do want to just say as a disclaimer, I'm not clamoring or wanting it to open too soon, but I also know that this is not a political podcast, but the government did not come in and help anybody. There's 30 million people who are unemployed, furloughed, and they're just starting now to get unemployment. So if the federal government isn't going to step in, it's a dire situation that we have to really weigh. Okay, well, what they're not coming in, the numbers appear to be pretty reasonable and low in different parts of the country. So we got to take it and figure out what we're going to do.
Yeah, I've been chatting with some friends today with the news that came out. It's not official yet, but the mayor's office and the county commissioner's office are saying, with the 3 more months of lockdown in Los Angeles County. And I'm just like, man, how are they possibly going to enforce that without rent freezes and mortgage freezes and some more basic income payments? And it's just like, we are very, very fortunate, the people, myself and my friends and you and others that we know, that we can work from home.
Yeah.
But many people can't and have lost their jobs or are getting furloughed. Lots of people at Disney getting furloughed. Most of Disney is furloughed.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's tough. I just don't know. There's no easy answer to this. And it's, I worry about my city.
Yeah. For those that are watching, we have a lot of people watching. Go ahead and comment, are you clamoring to go back to a Disney park if it's safe? What are some things that you'd like to see happen? We'd love to hear anybody watching. We have a lot of people, like I said, we have a lot of people watching. Feel free to comment. Love to hear it. David, what do you think about this? These part of the reopening of City Walk and Disney Springs.
Personally, I'm not in a rush for Disney Springs or City Walk. I'll save my venturing out for when it's one of the parks.
Yeah.
I don't think my need for the Disney fix will be satisfied by Disney Springs, nor am I hankering for Disney Springs. Doing it the right way, they're not opening their things, but third-party companies and restaurants are allowed to reopen in Disney Springs as they choose to. So they haven't said everything must open. They're giving the tenants in Disney Springs a lot of control over that. So I think it's a good easing in, letting the companies that are in there decide if they want to take the risk, and let the fans decide here in Orlando if that's what they want. Me personally, I'm going to save my adventure for when it's one of the parks.
Yeah. I'm pretty fine just being from home, hanging out with my wife. It's no problem at all. Well, we're here to talk about international parks, folks. So, without further ado, David, we have a few of our favorites or ones that I know. What's interesting is I know that none of us have all been to all these parks. I don't think. Maybe you have, David.
Mm-hmm. No, I haven't.
Oh, you haven't? Okay, so that's fun. So we're going to talk about some of our favorite international parks, and then we're going to kind of talk about our bucket list of parks that we really want to go to. Let me get this in full view. All right. Oops. Here we go. Does this look familiar to you?
Yes, it does. So, Efteling in the southwest Netherlands. I feel like it's one of those parks that's kind of on the cusp of everyone's heard of it or everyone's seen it, but if you say the name, they kind of look at you blankly and go, "What park is that?"
Yeah.
I had to refresh myself. It opened in the 50s as a garden park, you know, like we have here in the States or all over Europe. Little walk-through exhibits of fairy tales, little static dioramas, and then they added some live actors and some animation, and it grew into an amusement park, which became a theme park, which is kind of that perfect blend of the garden park that has no master plan, and so everything is just kind of everywhere, and you wander and you kind of see what you discover, but at the same time, excuse me, apparently I'm up to play. At the same time, you are walking through world-class coasters. They have some awesome rides. They have some awesome themed lands, good dark rides. I mean, you know, you're looking at some of these pictures here. This is their Flying Dutchman. It's a water coaster. Starts as a dark ride, boat portion, has a coaster portion, a big splashdown outside, goes back inside. Not Pirates of the Caribbean completely, but Pirates of the Caribbean esque. And it's about pirates. It's got the level of the indoor, outdoor, the faux outdoor scenes, the faux outdoor night scene for the load station, and all these things. It's just really heavily awesome themed ride at a park that does 5 million people a year in the Netherlands, third most visited park in Europe. If you talk to fans, I feel like they really know the park. If you talk to the average kind of consumer, even in Europe, they know it, but it's not necessarily the top on their list, and it really should be. So this picture is Baron 1890 B&M dive machine.
Oh yeah.
So it's not the coaster in the world, but it is extensively themed. They took a steel coaster that most people would just leave up as a bare steel coaster in their park. They heavily themed the queue, the load station, the lift hill, the first drop, and just left a small turnaround of track unthemed as a bare themed coaster. It's awesome. It's beautiful. It looks great. And the interesting thing with this park is it's such a family-focused park that this ride was considered too much of a thrill ride for the park, and the consumers said, "Hey, we need some more family rides." This great little house is their Vekoma Mount House. So, well, maybe you know, maybe it's the mock version, and somebody from mock is going to be mad at me, but it's their madhouse. It's just, but it's themed as this beautiful house. Everywhere you go in this park has the perfect blend of great theming, over the top, beautifully manicured landscaping, in this natural kind of just go and discover setting. Being an old garden park, you walk, you come around corners, and you just see what you come up at. And sometimes it's a land, an Arabian themed land. Sometimes it's the Vogel Rock coaster, which giant sculpted bird is the main marquee for the ride. This, I was a little jealous. I did not get to ride Symbolica when we went to the park, but their dark ride Symbolica that opened last year, it's the kind of ride that everyone around the world should be wanting for their park. It's a custom trackless dark ride that makes good use of a trackless system in an over-the-top story with media, with special effects, with animation, with onboard interactivity, with animatronic figures. It's fantastic. I mean, I consider myself lucky to have gone to this park because we landed at Amsterdam at 5 in.the morning, and I managed to talk the person I was with out of going to the Van Gogh Museum. I'm not a person myself. I said, "Hey, how about we drive 3 hours in the opposite direction of where we're going, and let's go to Efteling?" And I convinced him to do it. And so I did not get to ride Symbolica yet, but it gives me the reason to return.
That's so funny. Like, I've been there too, where you're having to like convince people like on a Washington DC trip to go to Six Flags America or stuff like that, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "Well, I need to go because there's a new ride system or what have you." It's very funny. I just want to tell you that the Madhouse ride system, which they have at Six Flags Great Adventure, and they have it at Six Flags New England, I think.
New England had one.
Yeah, it is so cool and so underutilized, and I totally love that ride system. So I'm always looking for ways to try to get that in there.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, from a ride standpoint, it really is a good family fun ride.
I had the great pleasure of just going there about 9 months ago, and I loved that attraction. I loved the whole park. It was just really wonderful and charming.
Cool. So we have some comments that have come up that we can kind of comment on. Will Cirque du Soleil be part of the Disney Springs reopening? They have not announced the reopening for that. They were just about to get into like technical rehearsals. So I have a feeling it's probably going to be several months, probably even long after the theme parks reopen. That's just speculation about when they're going to be willing to have people in such a tight quarter like that. Andrew says, good evening. Hello.
Hi, Andrew.
Oh, I'm going to get my head in here.
Andrew's my friend from high school.
Oh, nice. Hey. I normally take my kiddos down to the parks in Orlando during the summer, but even if they open this summer, I won't be taking them. I go myself for a fix when they are with their mom. I don't want to risk them, and I imagine parents. Yeah, I totally get it. You know, I think there's that risk factor. And then, of course, Mr. Joe Noogs is in the house along with Edmonds. Hello. So
I want to give a shout out to everyone that came over from the TEA mixer that we just had an hour and a half ago, and I was plugging the show. So
cool.
Some names coming over from the Western Division, Eastern Division networking mixer. So
that explains the numbers.
Yeah, huge numbers, folks. Huge numbers. We do the show basically every week, usually on Monday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific. Talking all about theme park nerdism from folks that are in the industry, which is always fun. Great. So we have another one. I want to put a disclaimer. I've not been to this park, and their biggest attraction that we all know is Pirates of the Caribbean. I would like to avoid spoilers at all costs.
Sure.
So as you talk about Andy, as you talk about this park that you wanted to shine the light on, please spare me any details. I'm trying to I can also just step away if you want to talk about it. But
well, I can tell you that apologies to Adam Bizark, but Pirates is not my favorite ride in the park.
Okay.
It's a fantastic technical achievement, but my favorite attraction in the park. So there's a beautiful view of the absolutely monstrous castle.
Yeah,
it's so big that they had to cut Main Street in half and splay it open like a horn so that you could see the whole thing from the end of Main Street.
Yeah,
it's like a full-scale Gilded Age castle. It's just freaking enormous. What's funny is that I hated it when I saw it in pictures years leading up to my visit, but when I got there, I was just like, "Oh, okay, this is fine."
Yeah,
it's an incredible architectural achievement. I know that I know some of the designers that worked on it. I know it's one of the most technically complex buildings ever constructed. The BIM file is like gigabytes.
Yeah.
It has restaurants and offices on top, and an entire attraction level in the basement, another walkthrough in another level. It's an incredibly complex building that's a real achievement. But I just want to talk about, so this view that you're seeing now is from the fancy Chinese restaurant, the fine dining Chinese restaurant with gardens just to the right of the end of Main Street, the north end of Main Street. And it's just these beautiful curated views of the castle through this garden. I just love that view. But for me, the two standout things for me in the park were the Adventure Isle challenge trails, the ropes course. So if you zoom in, so I've actually done this. I've been on the picture on the right. I've actually been in that position where you're faced with two paths over this gaping chasm. One which is very narrow and very difficult, which you see that guest on right now. And then the other side, which is slightly less narrow and slightly less difficult, but you get very wet. Choose that direction. I had never felt a sense of true sheer fear and peril. I mean, not even like going up the lift hill of X2 at Magic Mountain have I felt such actual peril, even though I was safely hanging from a harness. It was, I just have to say, that was, this is my favorite theme park attraction in the whole world that I've ever been on, mainly because of this scene right there. And the thrill that it provides, and the story too. The story. You're rewarded at the end of this with this beautiful view. There's another view of that. You literally are like traversing this 50-foot chasm with a raging waterfall behind you, and it is absolutely incredible. I'd never experienced anything like that in my life, let alone in a theme park.
Yeah,
it's really an incredible achievement. So this is another example of one of the obstacles that you can traverse. So at the bottom, you can see the stone path that you can just walk across. But if you want, you can take the difficult path over those little pillars, and if you slip and fall, you might bruise your leg a little bit. And, that's the kind of thing that you would never, ever see outside of China anywhere. The fact that they were able to do this at all is a thrill from a design standpoint. And there's a general view of all the rails. That's one of the junctions at the very beginning, and you can see there's the stairs, or you could take the net or the course net. As an example, there's usually 3 choices for each path, of varying levels of difficulty. Next slide. There's another example of that. So walkway, slightly more difficult, and then a very narrow beam.
Yeah.
And what's fun is that you can stand off to the side as a guest, not on the attraction, and watch your friends and family traverse this course, and watch them just. I watched couples have complete meltdowns, and children have life-changing moments of accomplishment. That's the kind of thing that I've never seen on a theme park attraction before. It was really, really amazing.
Cool.
The other thing that I love.
David, you're still here, right? I think he's having connection issues.
I'm still here. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, hey, Andy, you lost out the connection wise. Ready to talk about Tomorrowland?
Yeah. So one of my other favorite things that just completely blew me away was this approach to their Tomorrowland, with this beautiful meadow of flowers and wildflowers and grasses and the pond, and just the nature, the marriage of nature and technology. And this is like sort of the interior of the land, which looks like a sexy medical research park, And what's amazing too is I didn't include one of the photos, but I have a close-up of those marble pavers down at the bottom. It's like very rough and coarse, rough-hewn surfaces that you would never ever be able to use in a Western park at all, just for ADA reasons and safety reasons and whatnot. But just the rich textures that you get from that. But that approach of the meadow, like I stood there and marveled, it's just like all of the foliage and grasses and flowers were just blowing in the wind, and it was so idyllic, and it made me think of what Disneyland's Tomorrowland 2055 was meant to be, which we kind of got like a dollar store version of in 1998, but we were supposed to have, the flowing fields and layers of crops, fields of crops.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point of Venny to move on to the next one. Sorry, Andy, your connection keeps going out. We're going to move south a little bit and take it away, David, for the next international park we're going to highlight.
Oh, good. Is this my Hong Kong one? Because I wore my shirt preparing for
and what have you.
This is my.
Hey, Andy, sir, your connection is a little bad. Go ahead, David.
Okay, this park is got a special place to me because it was the first castle park that I can remember following the development of in my life. It broke ground on my birthday with a major milestone. It was the park that no matter how much I was working in China and no matter how many times I would get to Hong Kong and go through the airport, that I just couldn't get to the park. And it was that unobtainable goal of like, I need to get to this park. And you hear the criticisms of it doesn't have enough rides, it's small, it's Eisner's budget park. But like, once you actually go and go see this park, you know, the quality is there. It's size doesn't matter. It's about what's inside the park. And when you look at this park, it has everything going for it. It has the best master planned resort of any one of the 6 around the world. The original park, so much of it was based off Disneyland to have cost savings, but the benefit of that, if you can go back to that last picture,
Oh, sure.
stay on Main Street. So much of the fact that they copied things from Disneyland is what has really helped it, because it's got Disneyland's charm. It's got Disneyland's sense of scale. It is a fantastic, it's got the hug the way Disneyland in California does. And so much of that comes from the fact that they started with Disneyland Main Street and everything else around the park went off that. And so it was sized, it was scaled, it was designed to be just that intimate feeling with intimate spaces. Everything within the train tracks, you can go from one side of the park to the other in 2 minutes. Now, some of their additions outside the train tracks have been fantastic. Personally, it would have been better to wrap the train around a lot of these additions just for the flow of the park. But when you talk about everything inside the park, you can see some of the areas where, I don't want to use the term cheaped out, but you can see some of the areas where they had savings, especially when it came to the versions of the attractions they copied. When it came to the queue, there's not a lot of queue space for most of these rides. Like, you're outside waiting in a switchback for Space Mountain. You go inside in a hallway road. You can see daylight from Space Mountain. That doesn't work. But when you get outside of that and you go back into the spaces, they're all just that perfect, intimate. It's Disney-esque, even though it's Disney, but it's that truly Disney-esque sense of scale, and just sense of belonging within it, that it's for any of the great things Shanghai has going for it, it's too big. The spaces are too wide. It doesn't give you those intimate moments, and Hong Kong does. And I think if you could take Hong Kong's master plan and layout with the quality of rides from Shanghai, like if you could pick up Pirates and Peter Pan from Shanghai and put them into Hong Kong, you'd have Disney's best park. And I know this is a small park. This is the little park. This is in my top, I'm debating where it sits. It's in my top 4 of the Disney parks around the world. Wow. I liked it so much. It has all those things going for it. And now they've added in Mystic Manor and Toy Story Land and Grizzly Peak. They've added in all of these great additions that have really been standalone, unique rides. Iron Man is great. Small World, as much as Small World is already in 5 other parks, you are talking about something that's so quintessential to a castle park experience, that the setting here, going under the train tracks and the music starts building, the color palette that they've used, the backdrop of the mountains, everything in this park is just beautiful. The colors are fantastic in the park. The lighting designers in this park have had, they did an awesome job. Over by Small World, there's also the Festival of Foods and Mad Tea Party. At night, it's like strung up like Christmas. Even when you get into Fantasyland, it's the old tent style Fantasyland. It's not the European village. That's okay. It still works in the concept of this park and what they've done, blending some of the high textures on the show buildings for PhilharMagic with the tents up front. It all works. And there's a little bit of nostalgia in that for me, because my main park was Magic Kingdom, and I grew up with the old style Fantasyland being the tents. But everything about this park was just that right, hit all the perfect moments of nostalgia, and then really had, between Mystic Manor, the new Moana show, Small World, Hyperspace Mountain, really had some awesome experiences that were, I don't know, it pressed all the perfect Disney buttons for me. And for all the criticisms and critiques that this park gets, I feel like people really need to go give it a chance. Even though there are some places where it's like Tokyo Disneyland where it messes with your mind because it's so literal of a copy of California that you're looking at it and you're like, I'm in California, except weird piece of a building missing right here. Other than that, it's perfect. So it's a little Inception at times when they've recreated it 95%, and my mind is really thrown off by that 5% missing. Go down one picture.
That one or
off on the left. Off on the left of the Emporium in Disneyland, they added buildings to expand the Emporium back. Here they haven't. So it's perfectly Disneyland until you get to where the barn door is out of place for this Main Street vehicles, and it messes with my mind. But
yeah, that's why I called it
part of its charm.
That's why I called it Fever Dream Disneyland when I went.
That's part of its charm, though, is that it captured the scale of Disneyland better than any other Disney park since, because they used so much of Disneyland as literal direct copies.
I think we all kind of have that sensation where, like, when we go to Magic Kingdom or we go to Disneyland, you feel like you're in a dream when things are kind of different. This one, it's very weird because, like you're talking about, like you're walking down Main Street and then you got the castle straight from Disneyland
with mountains
behind it, and you're like, this is really weird.
But it's slightly lower. It's slightly lower to the elevation of Main Street in Hong Kong, which was like is it sinking? Is like the leaning tower of Pisa?
And it's interesting you said
well,
about
now they're building a super tall castle. So
I know, and it's like, oh God, it's happening.
Yeah, you could tell that, like, the master plan, it's built the resort's built to have two parks. Who knows whenever that's going to happen? But I feel like when I've gone to go to Hong Kong Disneyland, I've usually done it with a stop at Tokyo. Well, I've only been twice, but I went with going to Tokyo at Disneyland and DisneySeas, and that park is like a rat race circus, crazy crowded. This is like a place where you can go and it's relaxing. Like, go in for a few hours, pop out. The first time I went, it was a little sparse. It was a little closer to opening. And then when I went back it was like 5 years ago or 4 or 5 years ago, Mystic Manor had opened, the Grizzly, Mine Train ride had opened, and it was getting up there for me. Like, the attractions were pretty fantastic. It was a lot of fun. It was filling in, felt a lot better. And yeah, if you're ever in Hong Kong, folks.
It's great. What I love about it is because it's the more laid back, I didn't have to use Fast Pass and all that. I have an inability to use that as a relaxing experience. I use that as a challenge to see how many rides and how many rides per hour I can get. And this park was perfect for it because you can be anywhere within the train tracks within minutes. I'd be standing there waiting for a show, the Moana show, and go, I got 20 minutes to the show. I can hit 2 rides and be back. And I'd run and I'd do Winnie the Pooh and Small World and come back for the Moana show. And you just can't do that in other Disney parks. So I may not have used it as the relaxing that people are supposed to go to theme parks for. But for me, it hits everything perfectly Disney. And that's a great point of it's not Tokyo where you have to plan down to the second to maximize your day. You can just kind of go with the flow and see what happens.
Well, speaking of Tokyo, the park that I wanted to shine light on, the world's famous, one of the most famous parks in the world, Tokyo DisneySeas. Hope I spelled that right. This is not Tokyo DisneySeas. There we go.
Nope.
That just says it all, doesn't it, guys? Is there anything really to say after seeing this?
Other than I want to go there.
Yeah, this is known as
other than the ship. They built a whole ship. That's the
and a volcano. And a castle.
And everything you could ever imagine is in this park. This park is known as like the art director's theme park. The amount of money they spent on area development in this park is unreal. The amount of I'll just go down a corner and where no one is sitting, and I'm seeing this this little scene that's taking place with architecture, then there's story points that are happening with it, and just completely blown away. I'm just gonna thumb through here a little bit. You walk in and this is what you immediately see. Holy smokes. one cool thing about this whole entire Mount Prometheus is that depending on what side you are on, it looks a little bit different. So this is the most dramatic, with looking like a volcano. On another side, it looks more like New England, right? They have like a little New England area, which is really cool. And same for the other backside, it's adjusted. I'm going to keep flipping through this. So you walk in through, and if you turn immediately backwards, you have the most integrated hotel that they have at any Disney park, in my opinion. That's right along that water. And there's different parts that jet off, different wings of the hotel that go into different areas. The amount of money you have to spend to stay at one of these places is ridiculous. I'll tell you, because for I was going to be going on a honeymoon in February, going to Shanghai Disneyland and going to Hong Kong and going to Shanghai and Tokyo. And then, of course, COVID-19 happened, so that was all canceled. But I was looking to try to stay here, and I was like, oh my gosh, and having like a park view and maybe like one night and try to figure it out. But it's even all sold out. Like the occupancy must be like 100%. It's crazy. Totally cool. Next level integration. This is their Streets of New York area, their American I forget what it's called, but American area.
American waterfront.
Yeah, American waterfront. Thank you. Full scale, stunning. Overhead railway that actually takes you to another park one night. What was that?
Sorry, I refreshed my feed. Sorry.
Oh, no problem. It's absolutely stunning. They have a Broadway style show in there. Taking you around here to one of my favorite. It's a really cool use of the Pooh's Honey Hunt technology. Back in 2001, they just threw a bunch of Pooh Honey Hunt vehicles basically on top of water, so that you go around and have no idea where you're going. Super cool. I think underutilized ride system I know it's super expensive, but I think there's so much potential in this ride system to create almost like a choose your own adventure type attraction on water. Like you could have done this with Pandora with their, Navi River journey. It's just super cool. And that whole future area is absolutely stunning. The architecture in it, it's really spectacular. This is my favorite moment in any theme park in the entire world, anywhere, hands down.
That's the money shot.
That is. This is in the. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's a fantastic land, and that is such a amazing, beautifully staged shot.
Yeah, and we're designers here. There are some criticisms of the park where like it's almost all e-tickets, and so you go into here and you have like a pretty solid D-ticket submarine attraction. Then you have the e-ticket, which is Voyage to the Center of the Earth, Journey to the Center of the Earth. And then you have this food and dining retail, and everything's just so elaborate. But this rock work, people, this rock work, it's out of this world.
It's a masterpiece by Zolt Hormé and his team.
So this is a like next generation test track vehicle type system that you blast out of the volcano. It's super fun. When the times I've gone, I've just kind of kept going on the ride over and over again because it's that silly. It's like E.T. Aliens meets a test track ride system with thrilling finale. Super fantastic. And then they have 3-hour wait. Yeah, they have my favorite dark ride, Indiana Jones Adventure here, but it has a new spin on it, and they have a vortex inside of it. Now, I will say that I do like Disneyland's better in general, but the idea that they didn't just want to clone it and they did their own spin on it, and they did, they overlaid a little bit of a different storyline is super cool. And they don't have fire effects in this one, but you do have that giant vortex, which is pretty cool. Pretty cool.
So wait, did you call 20,000 Leagues a D ticket?
I did.
Or an E?
I called it an E ticket.
Oh no, it's an E ticket.
Okay.
Oh, 20,000 is. I kind of liked it better than Journey. I know I'll be flamed for saying that, but 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, just how they did that and the wet for dry and detect, like from a ride standpoint, 20,000 Leagues was pretty mind blowing. Sorry.
No, it's okay. That's okay. We'll give it. How about I'll call it a D plus. You can call it E-ticket. We can split in the middle. But yeah, Indiana Jones is here, and of course, as I've stated on a previous show, like that's my favorite. I can't remember where I placed it, but it's pretty dang high up there. You have an entire Arabian Nights area. Stunning. This is their carousel. It's absolutely stunning. And of course, the volcano is an actual volcano with fire, fire coming out of the top. Like
There's actual like rocket engines, but like pointing up on that thing. Actual rocket engines.
And I will say that out of all the things that Disney's come up with, the castle is often imitated in theme parks, and a volcano center with like Mount Prometheus is also showing up in all sorts of parks, even their direct competitors, where they want that volcano because it's such a fascinating, amazing thing to have at the center of the park. I want to go back. I'm just getting jazzed even just talking about it because it's just such an over the top, elaborate experience.
I want to throw in.
We have to give a shout out to Steve and Tim Kirk for the incredible design of that park too.
So we're gonna move away from Asia and go to I believe this is Europa Park.
Yep.
Cool. Take it away. This is on my bucket list. I want to go to this park.
Yeah, this is totally on my bucket list. I do want to give DisneySea one more compliment for the expanded vistas where they actually use Tokyo Bay to be seen from within the to be an infinite horizon. I mean, genius. The model was subterranean, so it's blocked by the walls of the blocked by the walls at the edge of the park, so you can't see the monorail, and you just see actual Tokyo Bay out in the distance beyond this. That nobody has ever done anything like that. Nobody has ever attempted anything like that. That's a bar that's here as far as park designs go that we may never see anyone in. Yeah. Okay, so Europa Park. On my bucket list, we've talked about the third most attended theme park in Europe. Now we'll talk about the second most attended theme park in Europe. Hawk Rides, family-owned park, over-the-top theming, giant selection of coasters, dark rides, shows, food and beverage, integrated hotels. They've turned what was a little showcase park for some of their properties and some of their ride systems into a resort destination. Now, when you think Mock Rides and it's a showcase for their park, mentally, you would start thinking, okay, they're just going to put rides down, maybe among some gardens. Their focus wants to be on the ride systems. But they really have not. They've made whole experiences where the ride system is just a conveyance, but it lets you go see, hey, this is what Mock Rides offers. But they focused on the experience being the main part. And they're not afraid to buy ride systems from other companies. They've got a Great Coasters wooden coaster, a B&M hypercoaster. They've just opened a water park. They're building a Skyliner system from France that will take you across the river into Germany to a transportation hub where visitors from France don't have to drive in for the day. They can Skyliner in for the day and then be bused to Europa Park or Rulantica, the water park. So if you the next slide, everything is themed to a European country, Europa Park. When they need to add a new land, they add a new country. This is Germany towards the front of the park. They just added a great flying theater. Again, bucket list park, so I haven't ridden it. The recommendations on this flying theater is it's soar in quality. So high on my list to go, but just I'm a sucker for the theming. The Iceland area is the perfect example.
I love the splash battle rides. They're so fun.
Yeah.
Well, and this one is integrated into the center of the land. It's a landlocked land, but it's supposed to be Iceland, so you wanted water. So they put the splash battle ride as the lagoon, themed it to whale watching. So it's completely integrated as a perfect part of the land. Even the two coasters behind you are weaving through the architecture. The focus is on the land and the theming and the experience moving through the park. And hey, we also have some kick-ass rides in the background.
Yeah.
I remember what picture I put next. So unfortunately for them, might be 2018 at this point, they had a very large fire, took out a big chunk of their Sweden land and their Pirates Dark Ride. So what did they do? They said, okay, we're going to rebuild it. And while we do, we're going to add new rides. So in that Sweden part of the park, which is already reopened, they added a new dark ride in the basement of one of the other buildings because they said, we're constructing, let's add a new ride. And the ride is the pre-show that tells the story of the water park that's a couple miles in the other part of town. And they're rebuilding a new Pirates ride. So think Pirates of the Caribbean without that IP now, but using animatronics, special effects, and how they've been increasing the quality of their rides each time they put one in. I think it's going to be awesome. I mean, when you talk about the Arthur and the Invisibles ride they put in, that ride gets mentioned when you talk about awesome dark rides. So have high hopes for the Pirates ride. And then this is the France portion with the smaller, not Spaceship Earth. But everything about this park is environments and little cafes, and go sit and have a beer. And when you're in Germany, you have to have a beer in your hands all the time. But sit, have a beer, have a little cafe. But even just look at the edge of that water. There's no railing. It's got still some of the old school European, never in America charm, even though it's the second most attended park in Europe and is playing on the international scale. It's managed to retain some of that European garden park charm. Just looks like it blends the best of both worlds, which is why it's high on my bucket list.
Yeah.
This is probably the highest on my bucket list right now, actually.
So
parks I haven't gotten to go.
So speaking of bucket list, so that was great. Thanks for sharing that about the old Europa Park. Why don't we go ahead and quickly, we only have a few minutes left to wrap up, but places that are on our bucket list. Let's go ahead and go down the list and do it. Andy, are you ready? Give us your bucket list parks you want to go see.
Tokyo Disney Resort, Tokyo DisneySeas in particular, and I'll be going next year for sure when I go to Asia for work.
Cool deal. Any others, or is it? Give me like your three. Give me like a three.
Well, I've been to all the other Disney parks in the world, but Europa is on my list for sure. I didn't get to go when I was in Europe last year, but I'll probably get to go next year as well. So Europa is definitely on my list, and Puy du Fou. Despite their politics, I mean, I was like basically going to like an American neo-Nazi park, but the live shows is just and the huge spectacle they do every summer. I don't think I can avoid that.
Cool. Hey, so for those that are watching, go ahead and comment with your bucket list parks. We'd love to hear them. We'll throw them on the screen and give you some shout outs. David, what say you? Top three.
I think after Europa Park, I would think Phantasialand, also in Germany, is high on my list.
I had
Universal Singapore.
Yeah.
I have a thing for the tiny theme parks that squeeze a lot into smaller footprints than they should have. And Universal Singapore seems to be Universal's Hong Kong Disneyland. So I have hopes.
Yeah. So you were breaking up there at the end, David. You said you have hopes for
I have hopes for it, just for Universal Singapore, just because it's had a lot of the same criticisms as and I disagree with all of them when it comes to Hong Kong. So I hope Singapore gives me that tiny park squeezed way too much into a small space. Joe Nukes has some good choices.
Yeah, from DisneySea, Shanghai, Hong Kong, and Efteling are my tops. Nice. Yeah, that's kind of close to mine. So Shanghai Disneyland is on my. Basically, it's just to see pirates at this point. I want to see that.
I have to say, Shanghai Disney is my second favorite Disney Castle park.
Nice. Okay. Versus Disneyland.
Oh,
yeah. I want Efteling, Tivoli Gardens, Europa Park, all those little Fantasia, like you said, that'd be good. I didn't think about Universal Singapore. That's an interesting one. That'd be cool. And it kind of reminds me of just Universal Studios in Osaka in Japan. Have you guys been there before?
I haven't, but I wrote the very first Christmas music for that.
Yeah, sorry, David. You said you've been there?
No, not that one.
So I will. I probably, since we were really heavy on Disney, I probably should have highlighted that. To me, that park is the greatest hits of Universal, and I think it is their best park. And I don't think it's even close, personally. I will tell you, I went when Back to the Future was open and before Harry Potter came in. So, I've been on Harry Potter. I kind of understand what that is. But you got Jaws, you got now Harry Potter, Snoopy area. They have a Sesame area, Spider-Man.
Nintendo.
What's that? Nintendo's coming out. Nintendo, Jurassic Park.
Yep.
The layout it's kind of like how we talked about how weird, like you're in a dream. This one mirrors the Orlando park quite a bit, and then it does kind of jet off in different ways, but it's very similar to that. And I actually don't mind the Universal Orlando layout as opposed to Hollywood, which is kind of a little bit. I haven't been there in a long time. It can be a little bit confusing and disorienting. Now, I haven't been since they did all the placemaking and they kind of redid the upper lot, so I'm very curious to go back there.
I wrote the very first Christmas music for that park.
Nice.
In 2001.
Wow. Yeah, that would have been.
We recorded the radio promo for that Christmas music for that park on September 11th, 2001.
Oh, no.
That's what we did that day.
So Joe Fox, to the DisneySeas. I'm actually surprised you haven't been there, Joe, for some reason. And then is that Universal Beijing Resort and then DLP? Yeah. Universal Beijing will get on there. Maybe, but who knows when that's going to open? But that's cool. So great. Those are some bucket lists. I'm going to go ahead and just make sure I didn't miss any of the comments. So Cedar Point is staying close for the time being. Okay. Yep. Heard that. No worries either way. Of course. Have you heard of the Spaceship Earth? I don't like to address rumors on the show because we're kind of in the industry. So, we just can't address that. But they have publicly said that they're going to be looking at all, Bob Chapek said they're looking at every single project with a fine comb. So I think you can imagine that that's code for projects may be canceled or on hold indefinitely. Speculating. What's that?
You never know.
Yeah, you really never know. So it's who knows what's going to happen. And then, yep, cool. Heard from the TEA Mixer. Cool. So, we go live every Monday and we talk about theme park stuff. And we're from the industry, which is cool. Just saw it reported as news today. Well,
from Inside the Magic.
Yeah, we gotta be careful about what that is. David, thank you for joining us. I thought, I know you're well informed, and back when we worked together, it was always fun. I'll just say nerding out with you. And we both came from a parks background, which we always love.
Thanks for having me.
And Andy, great to see you. We'll be back next week, most likely Monday at 9:00 Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. And by then, City Walk will be opening, and I'm sure we're going to have a lot to digest. And we'll probably pick a theme. You can follow. How do you want people to get? Do you have a plug, David Edmonds? Any plug?
No.
Nope. Okay.
Plug.
If people want to find you, fair
Didn't
enough.
prepare that.
Okay.
Talk about nerding out on parks, but no personal branding.
Andy, any personal branding?
This is our show, and I love it. And everyone, come back next week.
All right. Well, I will put a plug. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm trying to be the new Dave Cobb of the world. So Patrick, follow me on Twitter, folks. I'm on Twitter, and find me on LinkedIn. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, no problem. And yeah, we're also on Facebook. So we actually had pretty much an even split of people watching on Facebook and YouTube. You can go probably type in Themed Entertainment Design Show. That way you get notified. You can subscribe, all that good stuff. Thanks for joining. We're going to go ahead and close out with a song that was created by Andy for a dark ride that, well, who knows if it's ever going to happen. But here we go.